Council members, ready? I'd like to call the Committee on Finance meeting back to order. And Mr. Clerk, we were ready to take the last item, which is Bill number 78.
Bill 78 amends Chapter 2, Article 16, Section 2-98 of the Hawaii County Code 1983, 2005 edition, as amended relating to travel and other expenses. Amendment would add, no exception involving public funds shall be authorized without a public purpose. Reference, Communication 422, introduced by Mr. Iligan, postponed August 18, 2015. Note, there is a motion by Mr. Iligan, seconded by Ms. David, to recommend passage of Bill 78 on first reading.
Okay, thank you. So Bill 78 is live on the floor, and I would like to start with Mr. Iligan, if you have a comment.
I don't have any further comment, so I'll yield at this time.
Okay, any other comments, council members? Ms. Willie?
Yeah, make sure I have the right one. Yeah, I would like to amend Bill 78 with communication number 422.2, which you were handed out a copy of. And if I could get a second, I'll explain why.
Okay, I have a motion to, okay, and I have a second from Mr. Paleka. Ms. Willie?
Okay. And this is a slightly modified version of what, if you, I had one that came out earlier. What this would add is a little more accountability and a little more transparency to what Bill 78 as it stands. And I'm just going to, it would still, I've crossed out what Gregor has, but only to make the sentence function, and it's really incorporated in the body here, but that no exception involving public funds shall be authorized without a public purpose. There must be a written request for authorization, and this is for when can exceptions be made. Let me just back up a second. This is when can the mayor or the council chair authorize expenses in excess of the established limits or other exceptions with good cause. What has to be done? Is that just done in the hallway, walking by someone, and there's no accountability, or what's being done? So this, what I'm doing is sort of creates transparency and accountability when there's an exception to the customary standards. So there would just be a written request for authorization is made in writing, and there's documentation that it was a public purpose. It's authorization for purchases of alcohol beverages shall not be allowed unless provided by authorized exception. Expenditures for gifts in excess of $100 not allowed unless by authorized exception. And so that's just to make that clear, what are going to be limits before there is this authorization. And then there's a memorandum, and then written, so there is a public document with those that documentation that it's a public purpose and you've gotten the approval. And the Director of Finance maintain a record log of all travel expenditures that are authorized through the exception as permitted in this section, which log shall be available for public inspection. So let me bring Deanna. Can you come forward, please? So this would, to some extent, place some additional burden on the Department of Finance. So, Deanna, if you could just state your names, and I'll ask you a question.
I'm Deanna Sacco, Director of Finance.
Okay, can you live with this as you're reading it, or do you want another minute to? I worked on it to try to make it. One of the things I put in here is that it's travel expenditures, which is something we do keep track of rather than it being necessarily all, but travel expenditures I think is really where a lot of the issues come up. So I felt that was good. They do keep a record log. So can you live with this?
Yeah, I think we can live with this. I like this better than the other version I saw.
Okay, I'm just going, if anyone has any questions, just basically adding a little more accountability, a little more transparency, trying to not keep it too burdensome, but addressing concerns by the public, putting in these limitations as to alcohol and the cost of gifts, but allowing again for, as this is written, for exceptions, but that it should be something that, since exceptions are being made, the public can find out about it. Then if the public has great concerns how we're doing, what we're giving exceptions for, they could come forward and ask for more. Okay, I yield.
Other comments, council members? Ms. David?
Yes, thank you, Chair Eoff. I would just like to say thank you, Margaret, for making this a little bit more clearer, and also for Mr. Iligan to bring it forward. And my only question was whether Director Sacco, her opinion, that you already stated that you were agreeable to Ms. Willie's proposal. So that's pretty much good enough for me, and thank you. Thank you, Ms. Willie.
Thank you. Council members, further discussion? Mr. Chung is thinking about his comment. Is there anybody else in the meantime? Okay.
This will still, now for a reading, it'll go forward to council and have, or what, just sort of run it by me. What
We're
will
in
go-
committee, so if we move this out of a committee today, it would go to council with either a positive or negative recommendation, and then it would have 2 readings in council.
Okay, so the public will have ample opportunity to weigh in, and also if Mr. Chung misses something, he'll be able to weigh in further at those next
There'll be a
2 or
first
3
reading
meetings.
and then a second
Okay.
reading.
Okay, just check, want to make sure.
You ready, Mr. Chung? Otherwise, I have a quick
I mean,
question
you know,
of Ms.
yeah,
Williams.
yeah, I didn't have too much time to review this, but, just on my brief review, I think some of these little, what do you call these things? Subsections or paragraphs? I think they have, some belong under subsection A and some belong under subsection B. They have to be broken up, I think, to make sense. But I'll look it over, and maybe come up with an amendment. But yeah, this seems okay to me.
Thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Willie, could I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Could you read number 4? Because to me, it seems a little bit circular.
Number 4 being authorization.
Your microphone.
Mm-hmm.
That authorization for the purchase of alcoholic beverages shall not be allowed unless provided by authorized exception. So the standard is no, we discourage it and that, but that there are exceptions, and we discussed some of the things. I think Member Paleka said there are exceptions in cultural situations, but I do think, my preference is actually to say no. If you want to do that, you do it on your own money, but I'm just trying to listen to what everyone else says. I was always a little concerned in terms of liability. We say okay, and then somebody's drinking and gets hurt, and then we help to bring that about? So that was my concern on that. But again, I'm just trying to listen to where.
And the authorized exception, meaning it would you would look back to little b?
Yeah.
It would be provided
Yes.
for through
Yeah,
B.
I mean, if someone has some better wording or something, I'm happy to go along with.
Mr. Chung?
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Eoff. It is kind of circular when you talk about the authorization, and then later on talk about authorized exception. But, it just underscores the need to take a closer look. I mean, as I said, I'm okay with just moving this forward, but it needs to be tweaked. But we know what its intent is, and then we know what the specific provisions are, and they all look good. But you're right, Ms. Eoff.
Okay,
That
thank
needs to
you.
be cleaned up.
If there are, would you want to make a further comment, Ms. Willie? Okay, if there's no other comments, Mr. Iligan.
Yeah, I also agree. I was looking at that and good catch. I was gonna say if no one was.
Okay, then I think we're ready to vote. I think I can do a voice vote. All in favor of amending Bill 78 with the contents of Communication 422.2, please say aye. I think that was 9 ayes. Any noes? Okay, 9 ayes. Then back to the main motion, Bill 78. Excuse me. Is it okay? Okay, we're back to the main motion, which is a vote on Bill 78 as amended with the contents of Communication 422.2. All in favor? Oh, any discussion? I think Mr. Palek is considering a comment.
No, I like it. I like the bill. I like the intent. The gifts part I have concern about. I'm pretty comfortable with it for gifts per person, $100. Those would also require authorization. Right? Thank you for the nods of the heads. The problem is if we do go visit other countries or so forth, and we do decide, being from the Aloha state that we are, and say we go visit a compost Anlage in Deutschland, a compost facility in Germany, or other governmental persons, and take gifts. Or we decide when we're there, hey, there's another, or they defer us to, hey, you know what, you should go check out these guys. I mean, yeah, I'm not of the type, I'm not going to go empty-handed. So we don't get authorization before we go.
Mm-hmm.
But the leeway, and thanks, I see Margaret's already thinking about it and going, hey, yeah, that's a good one. So long as that type of situation is considerable or considered, where, you know what I mean? So I know I hate to bring up these tangents, but I think they need to be addressed.
Can I respond to that?
Ms. Willie, sure.
Thanks.
Yeah,
thanks,
that's why I didn't, doesn't say prior authorization. So when you do it, and I mean, you can always text to somebody we know about, can you give me some kind of heads up on this? But, it's just that you do take some risk. There is something risk. I mean, there are times, and I've tried to make that clear to our finance department or accounting, okay, if I get the airfare at this rate or something, and I don't have it nailed down in terms of some written authorization, okay, I know there's some kind of risk, but I want to do it, and we pretty much know what our situation is. So you don't have 100% guarantee that you're going to get, the county's going to pay for it. The way I look at it, to some extent, we all pay for a lot of things, one way or another. And if you feel it's appropriate, it's likely that the chair is going to say yes. Again, so if it said prior authorization, then that would be a block. But that's why it doesn't say prior, to allow for Councilmember Paleka and me and everybody else that thinks at the last moment, this is a good idea right now. But not imposing on the chair, it's still not 100% pinning him down that he has to go along with it. He hasn't gone along with everything I've done, by the way.
Thank you, Margaret. Chair, do I
have
still
the
have the
floor. Yes, you do.
floor? And thank you for elaborating on that part. And it's good to think of it in that way. In terms of the travel expenses, case in point, yeah, I'm gonna pay for my own way. I don't expect the county to pay for this current trip, but it is connected to this. My main concern, as brought up prior, was how do I attend my big concern was how to attend the meeting, but that's another issue. But yeah, be that as it may, we just got. I mean, for us as council members, we just got to do what we think is right. And for me, and I'm just going to do it anyway. That's what I think my constituents. I think it's part of the job. If we do get reimbursed or not, hey, no biggie to me. I mean, I knew that as part of taking the job and being elected. But it's nice to see that these things are being considered. Thank you, Margaret, for this. I mean, it does help fulfill some of the, I think, Bonnie, and maybe she wanted to chime in on how she feels about this, some input. So I'll yield at this time. Thanks.
Did you want me to ask Bonnie to come forward? Not now? Okay. Yeah, we have 2 more readings. We ready to vote, council members? Okay.
No,
Ms. Willie?
I'm good. We have a chance if there are other questions going forward. I agree that if some of the language could be nudged, if my legislative assistant wasn't sick, it might be help me out. Anyway, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then, Mr. Clerk, I'll go ahead and take a voice vote for Bill 78 as amended. Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call.
Go ahead with the roll call vote. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. This is motion. Well, this is Bill 78 as amended with communication 422.2. Mr. Chung. Aye. Ms. David.
Aye.
Mr. Iligan.
Aye.
Mr. Kunua. Mr. Nishi. Mr. Paleka. Ms. Poindexter. Ms. Willie. Chair Eoff.
Aye.
Chair Eoff, you have 9 ayes.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to the end of the Finance Committee agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, moved by Mr. Paleka, second by Ms. David. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's 9 ayes. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.